Welcome to eSonMicro-LAB. This is Part 7, C# Collections. In this tutorial, we will look into lists, array lists, and dictionaries. Please don't forget to subscribe and click on the notifications. Please let me know in the comments section any feedback you may have. Your opinion is very much appreciated. In C#, collection classes are mainly designed to store and retrieve data. Furthermore, collection classes also provide the mechanism to dynamically allocate memory. During application development, to better manage objects, we often have to process data in terms of grouping related objects by utilizing arrays and collections. C# provides us with two different methodologies to group objects: array of objects and collection of objects. There are distinct differences between the two. Collection classes provide developers with more flexibility when working with group of objects, depending on the requirements. Unlike arrays, collections can dynamically increase in size. These classes are contained in the namespace of system.collection.generic and system.link. List. Within a collection of objects, we can use list class to add, search, sort, and etc. Just like any other class, lists must be instantiated prior to usage, and we can use for each or for loop to access its members. Let's try Visual Studios to see some examples. Public class student info. Let's provide some variables. Public and student ID. Get, set. Let's copy all of this and paste it a couple of times. And we want to change the integer variable to a string. And we'll change the ID to first name. Similarly, change this integer type to another string and change the ID to last name. All right. Next, we'll create three instances of student information. Student info. So let's say student 1 is equal to new student info. So for sake of time, I've already typed few records, so I'm just going to go ahead paste it here. So student info, student 1, new student info. Student ID for the first record is 1. Student first name Robert. Student last name is Sky. Similarly, I have created student 2 and student 3. So each one has a record ID and first name and last name. Now let's create our list. So the first thing is the list keyword. As you can see, the telesense is not helping us out because we need to add using system.collections.generic. Now let's go ahead and try this again. List. Now we can see the list. Now the next parameters would be the type of the list, whether we want to use a string or an integer or what have you. In this case, we want to use our student class, so it would be of type student information. Let's provide a name for it. Student record is equal to new of type student info. And let's put our parentheses and semicolon. So here we've created our list, and the type is of student info, which is a class that we've created earlier, and we've given a name student record. So the next step would be how to add records to our list. So simply, we will use the student record dot add, and then we'll put our first student here, Control C, and let's put parentheses and a semicolon at the end. Let's copy this and paste it a few times. And let's change this one to student 2 and student 3. Now how we can print the results, we're going to use for each loop. For each student info, let's create a variable I and a student record. Now for the sake of time, I have already typed the information. I'm just going to paste it here. So what we have is console.writeLine, student ID, student first name, and student last name. So let's go ahead and run our application to see how it works. So as you can see, student ID 1, student first name Robert, student last name is Sky. So the application works as expected. Now here we have not provided our list a size. So let's go ahead and give it a size 3. And let's run our application. So as you can see, the results are as expected, no change. So what if we change the size to A2? Where we actually have 3 records. So let's run our application again. And as you can tell, the results are as expected, and it shows exactly the same results. Now, we need to understand that, and this is an important point to keep in mind, is that lists can grow dynamically. If we remember arrays, once you set the size of arrays, you cannot change it, or the size of an array cannot change dynamically. However, when we're dealing with lists, the size of a list can grow dynamically without us being worried about it. So as a matter of fact, if we don't even have anything here, let's just delete this one as we had it initially, the process will perform fine and the compiler will not complain. Another point that we need to make is that lists are strongly typed. Once we declare a list of a certain type, in this case, we have a student record. We really cannot have another value. For example, if I put 100 here, so you see that we are already getting an error. Now, can we add a record after the list has already been created? Yes, we can. So let's go ahead and try that. Student record dot insert, open parentheses. So the first argument would be the slot where we need to insert our record. So let's say in this case, we're going to put it at the index value of 0. And just for simplicity, we're just going to copy student 3 and paste it here. Semicolon to close it. Now let's go ahead and run our application. So the first slot, which is the index 0, we have our third student listed here, John, and last name Ducey. And the rest starts again with the record number 1, 2, and 3. So if you look at number 3, it's same as the last record that we have, which is student record ID 3. And if you look at our code, similarly, we have our first student here, and then our third student goes at the very end. But since we have given our third student the slot number 1 or index of 0, it shows up on the top of the stack. ArrayList. Similar to list, ArrayList is designed to store and retrieve data, and it can have any data type as the application requires. ArrayList is defined within system.collection namespace. ArrayList is also dynamic when it comes to memory management. Although ArrayList is similar to an array, however, ArrayList cannot be multidimensional. ArrayList is not type safe and can contain different types of variables and objects. Let's try Visual Studios to see some examples. Let's create our list, ArrayList, give it a name, so let's say my items equal to new ArrayList, parentheses. Next is to add items to our list, my items dot add. So let's go ahead and add some IC chip numbers here. Let's say 74LS00. Copy this and paste it a few times. That's good enough, and let's change this one to 74LS01, 74LS02, and 74LS03. All right, now let's also set a counter, integer, count equal to 0. Next, print each element one at a time. For each var item in my items list, console dot write line. So let's say item plus count plus item. All right. And let's increment our count plus plus. So we've created our array list and we've added some items into our list. And let's go ahead and see if our application works. So as you can see, the results are as expected. Item 0, 74LS00, item 1, 74LS01, and so on and so forth. Now, array list is really not strongly typed. We can just mix like all kind of variables here. For instance, let's remove this string from here and just let's put A101. And let's see if it's going to run. No problem. So as you can tell, this is an integer and we've removed the string type from our list and we just added a integer and everything worked perfectly fine. Now, can we actually insert into our list after it has been already created? Yes, we can. So let's give that a try. My items dot insert. First, we need to include the place where we want our new item to go to. Let's pass the index of 0 and then copy this one and paste it here and close it with semicolon. Now let's go ahead and run our application to see if it works. So as you can see, the results are as expected. So let's go ahead and see if we can change the index. So instead of being a 0, which is at the very top, let's go ahead and put it at the end. So let's go ahead and change this to a 3. Now let's run our application. So as you can see, item number 3, 74LS00. Now we have one copy on the top and then we have another copy at the bottom. So the application works as expected. Dictionary. In C#, dictionary consists of or is a collection of key and value pairs, objects within system.collection.generic namespace. Dictionary provides a quick way to access values using keys where keys within a dictionary must be unique. Values within a dictionary is associated or mapped to a unique key and can be retrieved faster since the dictionary key and value class is implemented as a hash table. Please keep in mind that a key cannot be null where the value associated with the key can be null. Similar to other classes mentioned before, we can use for each loop to access values within a dictionary. Let's try Visual Studios to see some examples. In this example, we will look into dictionary collection class. As we have indicated earlier, dictionary collection class exists within the namespace of system.collections.generic. So whenever we need to use dictionary, we need to import system.collections.generic. So basically what I have here, I have a class, student information, with 3 properties. The first one is the integer, student ID. The second one is of a string type, student first name. And the third one is also of a string type, which is student last name. Here down at the main, I have created 3 objects of the student info class, and I have provided or initialized each variables to the proper values. For example, student ID is equal to 1, student first name Robert, student last name Sky. Similarly with all 3 instances of this class. Now to start with dictionary, we need to use the keyword dictionary, and we need to pass the key and the value as indicated here through the telesense. So for the key, we will be using student ID, and for the value, we will be using student info and student info. So let's give it a name, a student record equal to new All right, parentheses and semicolon. Now to add records to our dictionary, we will use the student record dot add student one dot student ID, which is the key that we will be using, comma, student one, and semicolon. So let's copy this and print it a few times. And we can change our values, 1 to 2 to 3 here, and similarly 2 and 3. So to print the contents, we can print a selected record, or we can go through the whole dictionary and print all the records. To print a single record, so let's create another variable of type student info. Let's say student X equal to student record. And within the brackets, we can pass the index. So let's say in this case, index 2, council dot writeLine. For the sake of time, I have already created the text, so let me paste it here. So what I have here, I have a student record, a student first name, and a student last name. And I'm using the variable of type student info, student X dot student ID, student X dot student first name, and student X dot student last name. So let's include a semicolon here. So let's go ahead and run our application. So the process works as expected. A student record 2, a student first name James, a student last name Walter. And for our second scenario where we want to print all the records, let's first create a divider council dot writeLine. For each student info, let's create a variable, student Y, and student record, and we can use the values property. So let's copy all of this and just paste it here, and let's go ahead and change these values. Instead of a student X, we're going to go ahead and put a student Y, and let's go ahead and run our application. All right, so as you can see, the process works as expected. We have a student record 1, a student first name Robert, a student last name is Sky, and similarly the other 2 records. Please keep in mind that when we deal with dictionary, the key must be unique. Let's change this 2 to a 1. Let's run our application. So as you can tell, an item with the same key has already been added, key 1. So please keep in mind that if we have a duplicate key, the compiler will generate an error. This is the end of this tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe and click on the notifications. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.